I'm always trying to find what the right boat is for me. I've gone through lots of small boats trying to find the right one. I don't always get to take them for a ride before I buy them. Actually, I never get to take them for a ride before I buy them. So I was really excited when I had the opportunity recently to take the Chesapeake Light Craft Peeler Skiff out for a ride to check it out before I was to try to commit to buying or building, in this case, that boat. Recently, I was given the great opportunity to take a ride in a kit boat, the 15-foot Chesapeake Light Craft Peeler Skiff. I was very excited to do that because I had seen the Peeler Skiff on a trailer when I toured Chesapeake Light Craft a few weeks before. And later in this video, I'm going to talk about how cost competitive it is. Not that Chesapeake Light Craft considers their product to be cost competitive, but I just wanted to take a look at it because that might be something you're interested in. So be sure to watch all the way to the end because I'll go into that part of it as well. Let's talk a little bit about the specs of the Chesapeake Light Craft Peeler Skiff. It's 15 feet 2 inches long, 6 feet 3 inches wide. It weighs 313 pounds when it's completed, and it has a 1,000-pound capacity. This boat planes with an 8-horsepower outboard motor and will do 11 to 12 knots with 2 people on board. With a 15 horsepower, you can do 22 knots solo on flat water. That's pretty fast for a small boat. By the way, the Peeler Skiff does have a 20-inch transom, so it does require a long shaft outboard engine. The Peeler Skiff, though, is a flat bottom boat. It's not perfectly flat, but it's considerably flat. So if you wanted to keep going at 15 knots, like in a steep chop, you'd be much better off in something like a V-hull. It's not made for that type of performance. It's called a Peeler Skiff because it's named after a crab skiff type boat that was used here in the Chesapeake Bay. And a peeler is a type of a crab that's sloughing off of its shell and getting ready to have a new shell. So Peeler Skiff. Technically, I guess a Peeler Skiff is a dory skiff. But that doesn't really matter. So one of the things that I really was intrigued by is that it's a very seemingly wide boat. You know, not necessarily in dimensions, but because it's got a flatter floor than a 12-foot boat like this and even my 14-foot boat, that it seemed like you had a lot more area to walk around. In addition, the bench that goes across the middle of the boat was very low. So I didn't feel like I was having to step high to clear the bench like I feel with these aluminum boats. And part of that is because in these aluminum boats, the bench has to be high enough with bracing to, make the boat more rigid, because these things will flop around if they're not fastened up with benches. Sometimes people will gut these boats, and if they don't put anything else in there, the boats become very, very flimsy afterwards. So the Peeler Skiff has that bench for rigidity, and there's only one bench going across, and then in the back, the benches are on the side and go back across the transom. The center console is completely optional. Matter of fact, if you want the center console, they sell that as $420 additional cost, but you can order the kit without the center console, and so then you have a nice clean area with the exception of the one bench. And it can be easily operated with a tiller control outboard. It handled very solidly on the water. Whenever we gave it some throttle, it was a 15 horsepower engine that was on the back of it. It didn't feel like it was getting squirrely or getting away from us. It felt very stable, even though it's a relatively light boat. I felt comfortable walking all around the boat too while it was in motion and whenever we stopped various places. I did a lot of walking around on the boat just to sort of see what it felt like sitting in different areas and standing in different places on the boat. Because for me, that is one of the things that I want to be able to do when I'm out on my boat. And of course, a boat like this that has benches in it, when I go to move around out there on the water, the boat can tip around and move around, and I have things to step over. We've got ribbing here and we've got benches. No, I didn't take the helm of the boat. I just wanted to ride and kind of take it all in. And I don't get an opportunity to do that very often. Basically, the Peeler Skiff is like an old workboat. And that's kind of what I like about it, because there's something that I like about a workboat. So am I recommending that you buy the Peeler Skiff? And I think that comes down to whether or not you really want to undertake a project like this. Cost-wise, I honestly think it's pretty effective if you don't count any of your time and labor. Even if you put in a bunch of other things on there, like some lights and, hook some stuff up and do something fancy with it or whatever, you're under $5,000, excluding the cost of an engine, for a really decent hull. But the real challenge is the build time. And did a little bit of math because I have to actually calculate some of this stuff for my own benefit. They estimate the build time for the Peeler Skiff to be 250 hours. That's a long time. Now, a lot of those hours are not just building the hull and putting the boat together. Apparently that part actually goes pretty quickly. The real time consumption with these boats is all of the sanding, the epoxy, and the glasswork. So you're having to do a lot of sanding of the whole entire boat surface as you're laying fiberglass and putting epoxy down all over everything. Because I believe you need to sand between some of those coats and everything like that. And if you want your boat to look good and be durable, taking all of those steps is what's important. And the bigger the boat, the more complicated the boat, the more surfaces that you have to deal with when you're sanding. So with a build time of 250 hours, I ran some numbers here. If you're only working on it 10 hours a week, that's 25 weeks. So, figure there might be a couple of weeks where you might not be able to at all. And you're looking at more than 6 months to put your boat together. And of course, if you spend 20 hours a week on it, or a little more than 20 hours a week, and you worked quickly and efficiently, you're doing it over 12 weeks, so that's 3 months. Now, for some people, they go, hey, that's a winter project. I can start it in November and have it done before the spring and ready to go in the water. And that's 100% true. But you have to have the space to be able to do it, and knowing yourself whether or not that's a project you want to undertake. If it's a project you are willing to undertake, I think it's a very satisfying one, because it's not too small of a boat where it's really a compromise. It's not building something that's like a canoe or whatever. And that's what I think it has going for it, because in the end, you come out with what I consider to be a useful sized boat for multiple applications. So in my journey to find the right boat for me, I started off with a 12-foot flat bottom John boat. Then I bought the V bottom 12-foot boat. And then I bought this 14-foot aluminum boat. And then, of course, there's the Boston Whaler, which is still here and has trees growing in it now. The point is, I don't need another boat right now, but finding the right boat for me that's my journey. I'm trying to find the right boat for me, and I'm not sure what the right boat for me is. So are you happy with the boat that you have right now? Would you consider the Peeler Skiff kit? Let me know in the comments below. For me, the holdback with the Peeler Skiff is the fact that I have to build one. So, how does this compare to an aluminum boat of a similar size? I've run some numbers. This kit is $10,145 with the 15 horsepower outboard, no center console, and a suitable trailer that Chesapeake Light Craft sells for it. I included $1,000 for miscellaneous things, which is some of your paints, your varnishes, lights, any of those other kinds of accessories. I looked for a comparable boat on Lund's website, and I found this WC16. Now, the reason I went with the 16 is because the next smaller boat is a 14, and the 16 has a wide enough beam that makes it very similar. I don't think the floor is completely flat, but it does have some good floor space. So let's take a look at this Lund WC16. The price of the boat itself is $5,476. Lund sells a galvanized bunk trailer for $1,898. Let's equip it with that same 15 horsepower Mercury outboard, which is $2,960. Even though this 16-foot Lund can support a 25 horsepower engine, let's do apples to apples. And then we're going to throw in another $500 here for miscellaneous costs. That might be navigation lights or any other brackets or something that we need to make it all work. The price for that comes up to be $10,834. So about $700 more. However, you don't have to build anything. You're not putting 250 hours worth of work into this. Now, as I said earlier, Chesapeake Light Craft does not look at their product as being something that compares to this Lund boat. It is a big project, and they know that. You could spend about the same amount of money and get a decent aluminum boat, or have the satisfaction of having something that's different, special, and that you put your work into. And that's something to think about. I hope you found this video somewhat informative. Here's another one that YouTube is recommending for you. Be sure to check it out. And thank you so much for watching. Stay safe out there on the water.